Okay, we apologize for the inconvenience. I appreciate Sam and Richie over in the control room trying to make this work. We were not able to get the third line in the way we wanted without some audio distortion, so we apologize. So we're back. I have Jason Banks. Let's try this again one more time. Jason Banks, Director of Team FYNSports. Jason, Friday night, the Phantom Rebels over there with the North Hall Trojans. 13-0, first region game opening. Rebels on the road, 13-0. Give us a little details of how this one went down Friday night.
Went down pretty well, actually, for the Rebels. Despite not getting into the end zone, they were able to move the football really well. Good blocking up front. I mean, North Hall is no joke. I mean, we're talking about a team that took Pickens to the distance, you know. I mean, and Pickens is no pushover either. And Phantom played it really tough. This is probably the best game tackling, in my opinion. They were wrapping people up and running through tackles. I mean, they just weren't able to get the points that they needed to show it on the scoreboard and actually to handle it. So, well, it's a good game, though.
You're right about that. North Hall did go down to play the Pickens Dragons in their house, and they actually put up 35 on the scoreboard that night, and Pickens won right at the end of the game, 42-35, if my memory's right. So what you're saying is Fannin did put up a good defensive stance, but they come up 0. Fannin's struggling here a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. Who started as quarterback?
Chandler Smith started as quarterback, and don't get me wrong, you know, I mean, they didn't score, but he managed the offense pretty well. I mean, I think that Fannin has found their answer at quarterback. They might not admit that, but he did a great job under center.
He did a good job under center. It was just all right. Well, let me ask you this: Fannin is. I'm going to bring up this Union Panthers. Union Panthers had several. They played GAC. And the Union Panthers played GAC and ended up with a pretty bad loss to open region play. They lost 47-7. The Union Panthers, Greater Atlanta Christian. And Jason, there's several their trainers on the side of the field. They were wrapping kids with ice. Knees, shoulders, ankles, and several walking around on crutches after GAC left up there in Blairsville this past Friday night. They're coming to town to play Fannin. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. You know, I think that as bad as it sounds, it's kind of fortunate for Fannin to know that GAC did what they did, the Union, so they can prepare for it this week. And I hope they buckle up, you know, double knot their shoes, because GAC is no joke. You know, their only loss, GAC's only loss came by the hands of Valor Christian out of Colorado, the #1 ranked school in the state of Colorado. They're still undefeated. And that was just a 4-point loss. So, I mean, they're so good. I mean, they're scary good.
Well, I understand they're in 3A. They're bouncing back and forth between Locust Grove and GAC are the two teams bouncing back and forth in #1, #2 in the state between them and Locust Grove. So Fannin Rebels just better prepare. I watched GAC against Union, and we're going to be talking to Coach Allison tonight up for Union Panthers playback at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock tonight. I'll talk to Coach Allison about that. But, yes, they're coming to town. Let me ask you a question. Dawson has not played Dawson County has not played a region game yet because there's 7 teams in that region. So they were Friday night they played White County, and they were beat. They got beat 45-42. So they went head-to-head with White County. I think White County's a 4A team, right?
Yes.
Yes, they're 4A, and they went to head-to-head the Dawson Tigers 45-42. So that must have been a real fight. They're playing North Hall. So do you think Dawson can they have a home game. They open the region against North Hall. So you think the Dawson Tigers can handle the North Hall Trojans Friday night?
Yeah, I think North Hall's going to lose pretty bad in that one. I mean, North Hall's, like I said, a good football team, but I honestly feel like Fannin defense exploited some things in the North Hall offense attack in that game. So when Dawson sees the film, and White is good. You know, they're really good this year. So for Dawson to only lose by 3, and they played good football all year too. So I mean, if I was picking it, I'd say without a doubt my money's on Dawson. You know, they're going to win.
Well, Dawson plays North Hall, and right now what you're saying is the region play is where the teams start actually running some plays that they've been hiding. In non-conference for 4 games, Jason, you and I both know that a lot of the teams hide some of their players, hide some of their plays, things like that, so it's not in the film to be reviewed when they open up that first region game. But when you open that region game, you expose about everything on the team for people to start digging into. Is that correct?
Yeah, especially in a close game, and that's what the Fannin North Hall game was. You know, close. So,
well, Union's gone over to take on East Hall, and they're going over to take on Union Panthers. Let me switch gears just quickly to say that the Union Panthers are going on over to take on East Hall. Do you know anything about East Hall? I really don't.
I really don't either. You know, I mean, they're kind of they're the sneaky team of the region right now. I'm not really sure what to expect out of them.
In 3A in this region, right now, I know it just opened, and a lot of people don't like when you call it this early. But are you looking at like a GAC 1 and Dawson 2? I think
so. I think Lumpkin will be up there too. I'd like to see Fannin pull something off here, but you know, not to be a homer, but yeah, I'd say GAC, Dawson, yeah, and then maybe Lumpkin, then North Hall.
Union has a good football team. They have a good football team. They have a lot of film to look at this week, and I don't know if you say it like this, but you know what? GAC's out of the way. I don't even know if you talk like that, but GAC's out of the way. I don't know if that makes sense or not. If they didn't have any season-ending injuries, there are several injuries. Cole Wright, their quarterback, he had to call timeout. I'm standing on the sideline. He's pointing down at his foot at coach, and he's calling timeout. I mean, this kid can win ball games by himself, and he couldn't even like 2 minutes into the second quarter. No way, he couldn't even crank up 3-4 yards around the outside. Nothing. I mean, they were collapsing this kid immediately, and they were putting 4 or 5 helmets on this kid. And he comes out limping. A source tells me possible. We'll find out tonight. Possible broken foot. Possible, but he was out on crutches. Was out the rest of the game. So if Union didn't suffer, injuries, season-ending injuries, they're still a good football team. Let me move on to 4A. The biggest rivalry game in Georgia is one of the many, especially in North Georgia, is the Gilmer Bobcats Pickens Dragon game. That is this Friday night. This Friday night is Bobcats Pickens. This is only going to be a rivalry from the stands for 2 minutes into the game. How much trouble you think I'm in for just saying that, Jason?
Who could say anything? I mean, come on, man. Gilmer's they're rebuilding like from the ground up.
Ground up. That's exactly right, and that's what exactly right from the ground up. Pickens is rebuilding. Gilmer is rebuilding from the ground up. This is going to last 2 minutes, but you do know. Go ahead.
I was just saying, Pickens is loaded. I mean, they're ready to play just about anybody. So,
Well, you know, Pickens. Here's the thing that the Gilmer fans do not like, and they've got to get this program back on track. And I'm going to say it like this: they got to stop the bleeding. And when I say this is, you know, they've got 2 or 3 skill players, Gilmer, that went to Pickens, and the receiver number 9, I forget his name. Number 9 is from Gilmer. And C.J. Stryker, the kid's just a sophomore, and he's already getting looked at by these colleges and all around the state. His name comes up. So C.J. Stryker, and then here recently, Gilmer had an assistant offensive line coach, Garrett Sellers, that played at Navy, played a year at Navy, came home, wanted to help his alma mater. He played Gilmer football from the time he was a little kid, and I'm not going to go into the details why, but they wouldn't let him coach. So guess where he's at? He's on the sideline down at Pickens.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I have to tell you tonight, Friday night, Gilmer fans, I don't want to upset you. You know, I love you guys out there, but you got to stop the bleeding. You're building from the ground up. This rivalry game, Jason, Friday night, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, Gilmer's only scored 14 points this season.
Well,
they've had 1, 2, 3, 4 blowouts, giving up 40 points. Looks like they're averaging close to 45 points given per game.
Well, I would say this. Well, first of all, I want to say this, though, Jason. You said from the ground up, they have a class act coach. Casey Wingard is a solid man. Absolutely solid man, okay? Class act, solid guy, and they just got to give him the time. They got to give this guy the time. They got to give this guy 5 years to build this program, or it continues to dwindle. And we're talking about a program that used to be a powerhouse. You know, I tell you a goal. I'm going to tell you that I'm not trying to upset any of the high school football fans out there, any of the moms or dads, or any of the coaches. But I think the goal that Gilmer has to have right now is to play a second half without a running clock. And I don't know how cold that just sounded. Was that bad, Jason?
You know, I mean, sometimes the truth hurts, and all you say is, I wouldn't trade places with any of those guys. You know, they're out there playing for them. I mean, you got to have a lot of heart. There's a lot to be said for knowing that you're struggling right now, and it's, climbing a mountain. But like you said, give that coach 4 or 5 years. I mean, Casey's good, and they'll be back on top.
Well, I absolutely love the guy, Casey Wingard. I love the team. They're good kids, and I'm not saying anything negative, but I think they've played every second half with a running clock, and we know what that means. So, or most of the second half. So, I'd like to see this rivalry game come up. But now I will say this. Let me give this before I move on. I got one more thing this morning, Jason. I will say this: when it is Pickens Gilmer, no matter the situation Gilmer's at right now, those guys will come out a little extra charged up because they're playing Pickens. They will come out a little extra charged up. So, but I don't know if Pickens will have a hard time handling them. But in that same region, speaking of Gilmer Bobcats, you go to Wesley Tankersley over in Ridgeland. And they put it on Northwest Whitfield Friday night. Ridgeland put it on them, and this guy may have the team. He brought several. He brought, I think, a couple region championship wins to championship to Gilmer. But this guy goes over to Ridgeland. He might have the team he's been wanting since he started his high school career coaching. And Northwest Winfield we thought would be solid. So, Jason, any final thoughts on Team FYN Sports or what you're covering this year?
Not really. I mean, it's an honor to do it. I love it. It's great seeing the fans show up for the games. And that's about it. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at TeamFYNSports. Make sure you like us and follow us on Facebook. at Team FYNSports, and make sure you go to the games. Like, that's number one. I mean, fill the stands.
I tell you what, there's not anything much better than the sidelines on high school football Friday night, is there? So we've got GAC coming to Fannin Rebels this weekend, folks. We've got the Union Panthers traveling over to take on East Hall. We've got the Gilmer Bobcats traveling down to take on the Pickens Dragons, and Dawson is playing North Hall. They're at home opening against North Hall. Any other teams out there of highlights around the state that you've been keeping up with, or somebody that's not in our actual viewing area that you got a comment about?
Not really. You just kind of touched on, you mentioned Ridgeland. I think they got Lafayette this weekend. I'm not sure, but I think you're right about Tankersley over there. He's got the team to beat in that region. So that's it.
Jason, you have a nice day. I appreciate it. Folks, we've had Jason Banks. He's the head of Team FYNSports on the line. This has been our first Monday Morning Quarterback. We will get our audio corrected to where we can get Richie and other people into the conversation next week. We'll make sure we have that straightened out. It wasn't a problem of me or you hearing Richie. We couldn't get Jason, the other people on the line, to be able to hear him. So we'll get that straightened out. Folks, we're going to take a brief break. When we come back, it's time for our Blue Ridge Hour, the Fannin Cartel Hour. Oh my God, this is going to be a knockout. Take us a break.